up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today I'm finally getting around to one of the most talked about films of the year, 1917. Now, when it comes down to war films, I'm extremely picky. I don't want to merely like a war film. Obviously, I don't want to hate one either. I want to love it or nothing. And there really isn't many out there that I do love. Saving Private Ryan is among one of the best war films ever made, for instance. But there's also a lot of war films that kind of blend together too. So let's talk about 1917, a movie that covers an interstice in World War I. Let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, interstice, a short period of time in between events. 1917 is the story of two young soldiers in the heat of war when they are commanded to cross enemy territory, as it's a shortcut to get to their allies. These men are on orders to stop a planned attack from taking place because it's an ambush. So these brave men must challenge themselves against the impossible and unknown odds when they cross the enemy's front door. This movie's insane. It really is. I love it when I watch a movie and I can just tell that against every other movie that came out in the year, it feels different. It feels like the one movie that isn't like all the rest. Heck, I don't even know where to begin with my review because it's that good. But I guess I'll just start with the obvious. 1917 won for Best Cinematography at the Oscars this year, and had I not known that going in, I would have predicted it for obvious reasons. The entire thing is a one-shot, or at least it's made to look that way. That's not the first time that we've seen that by any means, but it is incredibly rare. The first time that I saw that was in a movie called Silent House with Elizabeth Olsen, but that whole movie took place in one spot, a single house, while this takes place all over a huge battlefield. It's incredibly expensive from location to location, and it's insane to think about how they made it. It's not all one shot, obviously. It is made to look like it, like I said, which means that the editing has to be on point, and thankfully it is. If you don't know what you're looking for, you won't notice when they stitch things together. I do know what to look for, so when I was watching the movie, I was pointing at the screen saying, there's a cut, there's a cut, there's a cut. Basically, when anything passes in front of the characters, even for a split second, that's probably where they actually cut the film and stitch it together. But you can barely tell it's happening because the editing really is incredibly pristine. And now let's talk about pristine, because it's hard not to call everything else in this movie pristine, because there was clearly a lot of thought put into this film. Because look, when you're so focused on this kind of camera work, you have to work hard on planning everything else that happens in the film to a T, so that you don't have to go back and do the same long shot over again. So you'll notice that the acting is insanely good from everybody. The set designs for everything war related is really good as well. The lighting is surprisingly good for such a flexible camera style. There's just so much going on and so much movement from this camera that almost never cuts away that you'd think it'd be logical for some mistake to happen. Something or someone would be showing up in the background. They're not supposed to be there, but that never happens. Everything is as it should be, and it is heart-poundingly good. To add to all that, the musical score by Thomas Newman sounds a lot like something that Hans Zimmer would do, and that's not a complaint by any means, because it really does contribute to the overall feeling of what's going on in this film, and it does it so well. It's a very good musical score. One of the most difficult things to do is to find fault in this movie. Anything that I didn't score perfect remarks to was so small and barely complaints, like with the characters. On paper, am I really going to remember these characters later on down the road? Probably not. Their acting is insanely good, as is their presence. But what makes these characters distinctly different than any other army character? It's hard to say. Doesn't make them bad, though. Like I said, it's such a minor complaint. Same with importance of each individual character. It's definitely a movie that feels like the importance lays on the shoulders of one or two of these guys, which is great, but there's also a lot of bogeys, unimportant people in the background that kind of just talk about random things to fill gaps of what could possibly be perceived as boring, but their characters aren't that important. For instance, there's a sequence in the film where the main character is on a vehicle which helps transport him from one location to the next. Well, with the filming style of a one-shot that doesn't ever cut away, a ride in a vehicle can be boring. So they fill in that gap with people talking about stuff that really doesn't matter. So that also affected my dialogue score, but again, not by much, and honestly, that's it. So let's take a look at that end score. From an unbiased perspective, I would give this film 94% because it did a lot right, and very little could be improved upon. My biased opinion, however, is that the film deserves a score of 100%. I was utterly impressed. When averaged together, the two scores then become 97%, which is the final score that I'm giving 1917, rewarding it with a letter grade of A+. It's hard not to see why people love this film, and it's hard not to understand why it was up for Best Picture. As much as I thought Parasite is worth the watch, 1917 makes a little bit more sense if it was going to be the winner for Best Picture, just because of all the separate things that it had going for it that I don't think Parasite did. Maybe it's just me though. Guys, I want to hear your thoughts on 1917. Is this one of the best war films ever made, as I believe it is? Or is it way too overhyped? Let me know below. As for YouTube, you know what to do. Hit the subscribe button if you like this review and would like to see some others like it. Hit the thumbs up button because that always helps out my channel. And don't forget about the little bell icon because that'll help notify you when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out!